I would love to hear some more about the delivery endorsement concept, which I know isn't specifically contained in this section, but I think...
No, I
yeah.
think we need to talk about it. Okay.
So the intent of the delivery endorsement definition and the concept here is to be able to expand the types of establishments that would be allowed to deliver. So we will recall that we established as part of the drafting process a delivery-only retailer license, which after receiving public comment, I would suggest we want to modify that definition and make it a delivery-only license, take out the retailer component, because the reality is that it is not a retail license. It would be a partnership with marijuana establishments that are retailers, but it would be a standalone license. So that's part one. The second part of this is that we, through this license, have an opportunity to begin to rein in the illicit market, and I think do so in a way that is substantive. And that is, more than anything, the most compelling reason for my support of this license and its inception. I think that expanding it in a way that allows for us to keep track of what is going on while also providing opportunity to economic empowerment and social equity applicants to use this lower barrier entry license or opportunity and come into the regulated side, I think is it's the second really key component of this in my view. And so I would suggest that we think about expanding the ability to deliver to not only delivery-only licensees, but also to incorporate economic empowerment and social equity applicants for that period of exclusivity that we have discussed, who are micro businesses, and allow for there to be delivery direct to consumers from those types of businesses using a methodology that I've coined as a delivery endorsement. Essentially what it would be you can be a social equity applicant, economic empowerment applicant for this exclusive period. You can apply to be a micro business, and you don't have to deliver, but if you decide that you want to deliver, you can come to the commission and apply for that endorsement. And it would allow for you to establish as a component of your operations the ability to deliver directly from your establishment. The reason that I think it is helpful to think about it in this way is because it allows us, if this is going well, if we see that we are starting to see a diminishment of the illicit market, if we see that we are able to operationalize this and practically apply it as a commission and do this in a way that things go smoothly, I think that an endorsement allows us to start to think more broadly about what other types of licensees might also be able to deliver with our endorsement. And so that's not for, I would suggest it's not for 6 months from now, it's not for a year from now, but it provides the flexibility, perhaps, for us to decide where we want to open up avenues for the potential for delivery going forward in time. And so I thought of it and drafted it in a way that really is intended to provide us with some level of flexibility and also to provide businesses with some opportunity to be flexible as well. I could see in the future, if you currently are operating a micro business and you're really kind of focused on what you've operationalized now, if we decide that we want to open it in the future, you might want to add a delivery endorsement and should be able to do that relatively easily and with a sort of a minimum of effort, but that we as an agency can keep track of and essentially treat it as a permit.
Great, thank you. I have some questions, but go ahead, Commissioner Doyle.
Yeah, you sure?
Yeah, go first.
So thank you, that was very helpful, because I was trying to understand what we were doing with this. And I just want to clarify, so the delivery endorsement would not be available to all micro businesses, it would be available to micro businesses who are economic empowerment applicants and social equity
Right.
applicants.
So we would be applying the same exclusivity period that we are applying to the delivery-only license and to social consumption for the same period of time.
Okay, and so it's akin to a pilot program without being a pilot program in name?
Yeah.
Okay, and so one thing, just in case I'm not around when this happens, I would ask that when we're, that aforementioned evaluation of the extension of the exclusivity period and perhaps the future evaluation of adding licenses to this, I would ask that we add or look at how to add craft cooperatives to this, because I think they're similarly challenged and license deserving of consideration for this type of treatment.
Great, thank you. Would you like to go ahead, Commissioner Tuttle.
Just want to commend Commissioner McBride for this idea. I think it's really elegant and effective way to incorporate a lot of the public comment that we received. I would actually be in favor of opening it to all micro businesses, but if we want to do a phased approach where it's just those in the exclusivity period now and then micro businesses shortly, that would be fine. But the reason is, one, just to meet demand. I don't think there's enough in the programs right now to meet demand for delivery. And then two, I think we heard some really compelling feedback from micro businesses who expressed that they are meeting all these extra requirements, they're residents, they're operating within these small limitations, but what benefit are they getting for being a micro business? And I think offering them a delivery endorsement would be a good way to do that. But if we want to hold off on that piece to next time, I defer to the majority.
Commissioner Langen, do you have any comments? I guess I have two questions, Commissioner McBride, if I could. I support and applaud your efforts on this. One is, I can think of two ways to allow a microbusiness to deliver. One is through a delivery endorsement that they do the delivery themselves, or two is to just allow them to do exactly what we're allowing retailers to do, which is to contract with an independent delivery service to have their product delivered. And again, the independent delivery services serve, I think, the two objectives you talked about in terms of the illicit market as well as creating low barrier entry opportunities to the industry. So I'm just wondering, did you consider the alternative, which is not to allow the microbusinesses to deliver themselves, but to allow them to play the same role that a retailer plays currently in our current delivery proposal?
Answering that question honestly,
Yeah.
I didn't, and I didn't mainly because I've always taken the approach to this of trying to make it scalable for us. And so this was my best effort at trying to make it scalable, but I leave it to the commission to have that conversation.
Okay.
We don't, there are a lot of things that we don't yet know. I think there are things that we surmise. There are questions that I've asked of licensing and enforcement about how practically we would put this into place. I'm just trying to be conservative in the approach of how this unrolls.
So thank you. And my second question is kind of related, which is that if we go the route that you're proposing and the endorsement would allow the micro businesses to deliver themselves, given the previous conversation about security, does an endorsement have the same security requirements that getting an additional license, a delivery-only license would have?
It does.
It does. So there's no, from your perspective, there's no issues that an endorsement would have any security risks greater than what we're trying to address through our delivery-only license security requirements. Is that correct?
I've specifically tried to draft it in a way that avoids compromising security, which I think is, it needs to be priority not surprising.
Pardon?
I'm
not surprised. Are there other comments or questions?
I have one follow-up
Go ahead,
question.
Commissioner Doyle.
And I should know this, but with the taxation, since this is essentially a retail sale, oh no, am I asking a terrible question? Okay. Would the municipality who collects, if they have the local option, the local tax, would that be the site of the microbusiness?
So I think that this might bleed into another conversation that I assume, are going to engage in.
I think we have to.
About the municipal boundaries and where deliveries can be made.
So I think we absolutely have to get into that conversation. Let's just pause for a second.
I can answer the question without, the preview of
Sure,
my answer is that I think it's important that we clarify in here, and I hope that we don't view this as beyond the scope, because I think that it is very relevant, that the delivery, that the tax would be collected at the retail point. So it would be at the marijuana establishment that is a
Not the address that is
retailer,
delivered.
right, at the business
Do we need to
retailer
get,
and at the micro business.
Have we done, or
address.
do we need to get DOR input on that? That's consistent with tax code and practice?
I think it's consistent with what is happening
Okay.
now.
So,
It would be, so, I'm looking at your face, there's confusion. So right now, right, the sales tax is collected where the marijuana establishment, the retail marijuana establishment there, right? And that it would be for the micro business, if we allowed for micro businesses that were social equity applicants, economic empowerment, it would be at their location, the micro business's location. Does that make sense?
Yes.
As opposed to where the delivery operation is located from. Because we're changing the nature of the license again, or at least that's a suggestion, from a delivery-only retailer license to a delivery-only license, so that retail component needs to follow where the actual retail
that
sale.
makes sense. Okay. Unless there are other follow-up comments or concerns about the last topic that we're discussing, which was the approach that Commissioner McBride has suggested with respect to authorizing microbusinesses to deliver. And I appreciate Commissioner Title's comments, but it sounds like I think we're aligned on that. Unless there are any comments on that, I think the next topic that I think is important for us to get into is restrictions, if any, with respect to where deliveries can be made. So I'm going to ask for Commissioner McBride's leadership on this topic as well, given that she's primarily responsible for the draft. So, Commissioner McBride, are you comfortable starting this conversation?
Sure. So the question has been raised whether we retain the language that's currently in the draft that would allow for deliveries to be made in municipalities where retail is allowed, even if an establishment is not currently operating, or that and the municipality where the delivery operator, their place of business is. A suggestion that is on the table, or that I would put on the table after receiving comment on this, is whether we expand and allow for there to be broader delivery to municipalities that either opt in to receiving deliveries, that's option one, or opt out of receiving deliveries, that's option two. So do we expand it? If yes, should it be that municipalities opt in to deliveries or that they opt out of deliveries?
Thank you, Commissioner McBride. Again, let me, if you don't mind, put you on the spot. I'd like to hear from the other commissioners on this, but do you have a point of view or a perspective on the alternatives in terms of your preference based upon, the conversations you've had and thinking you've done about this?
To align it with the social consumption pilot program, I would suggest that we opt in, that we allow for municipalities to opt in to receiving deliveries if we decide that we're going to expand it.
Okay, so under your opt-in proposal, if
To be clear, it's not, this is I'm not making a proposal.
No, fair-
It
no,
is, a
discussion.
point of deliberation for us.
So, I'm sorry, thank you for the clarification. So opt-in would be if a community allows retail, whether or not they have an operating retail store, deliveries would be allowed in that area. 2 is the city or town in which the delivery-only licensee was licensed, and 3 would be those, any additional communities that would choose to opt in. Okay? Is that, am I understanding
Yes.
correctly? Thank you.
And I'm going to caveat this, that, and I will defer to, I don't want to put Commissioner
No,
Doyle
go
on
ahead.
the spot.
We can put her
To
on the spot.
municipal attorneys, but also just generally speaking, how that process would happen.
That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons that we are deferring our next round of regulatory development, one of the reasons we're deferring our next round of regulatory development to January is not just to give the staff a chance to catch their breath, although that's certainly an important part of it, but whatever we decide, not just on delivery, but on other regulations that we're debating right now, is going to require implementation. And so we want to make sure we have the time to actually execute, including the point that Commissioner McBride just made. Can I have other comments or thoughts on the options that Commissioner McBride has put on the table? Commissioner Title?
Just a quick note, I couldn't hear that conversation very well from
I
here.
apologize.
So if you could talk in the microphone.
I'll do a better
through.
job of...
Great.
do you want me to repeat?
No, that's okay. Unless, I don't know if other people want you to repeat.
No, I've
Okay.
asked you if you have comments.
I definitely support opt-out. I don't think that a municipality can... Actually, I'm just going to leave it as I support opt-out.
Pardon?
I support the opt-out.
Okay. Commissioner Flanagan, do you have any comments? Commissioner Doyle?
No, my only comment is we do need to be clear about how the municipality does it. We could leave that for me to work out with general counsel, or if we want to, it's essentially right now with the host community agreements, it's the contracting authority. That's not typically how, you make a decision about a use. It's often done by a governing body, a city council or a board of selectmen. So it's an issue that does deserve some attention up front.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner McBride?
Acknowledging my ignorance on this subject, in my mind's eye, the way that I was thinking about it was that we also have provisions in the regulations about the hours of delivery, and we set forth what the hours of delivery, unless by bylaw a municipality decided to change that. In my mind's eye, it sort of was kind of a similar sort of process, that you would decide whether you're going to opt in to allowing delivery, and that you would decide what the parameters would be. Are we going to adopt the commission's provision on what the allowance, which is 8 a.m. to 9 p.m.? Are we going to shorten that period of time by our municipal bylaw or by city ordinance? I don't know if that makes sense.
And that does make sense. I will flag a timing issue for you. We're in September. I'll say many municipalities are already in the final planning stages for their fall town meeting season.
Right.
So they may miss this issue in their fall town meeting warrant, and we wouldn't be looking at them addressing it until the spring.
Till spring.
Yeah,
Yep.
cities have more mobility.
Yeah,
but-
I think totally understanding that.
Yep.
I think that the practical realities of our licensing process and what it is going to take in order to build what this would look like, I think we at the earliest we'd be looking at Springtown meeting. I did actually think about that timing piece. I think we'd be looking at Springtown meeting anyway, and that actually gives us some time to not only message this if we decided to go this direction, to message it appropriately, but also to, just notification of all of the affected parties that this is forthcoming, and you've got 6 months to plan.
Okay.
So could I suggest, Mr. Chairman, that any municipality, if we were, regardless of which way we go, opt in,
Well, we have
opt out.
to
Yeah.
vote on that, but go ahead.
But regardless of that, any municipality, by bylaw or ordinance, just to establish that this.
Yeah,
should
no,
be a
we're going to have to work on the
process.
language here,
Yeah.
and I don't think we're going to vote, not going to be in a position to vote on the language, just the concepts here, and then we're going to have to ask for the help of our general counsel with our municipal law expert to help us with the drafting. So the way I'm following this conversation on delivery as a whole is I think we're aligned on the body camera issue. We need to vote on it, and I think overall on delivery. I'm not hearing yet alignment on one specific issue, which is that if we choose to expand the cities and towns that delivery will be allowed in beyond those that currently allow retail, even if no stores are opened, and that city or town in which a delivery-only licensee is licensed, if we choose to expand that, is it that municipalities have to opt in or opt out? And I think we need to have a vote on that. And then I think once we're done with that, I think we can vote on the entirety of the delivery section, including the modification proposed by Commissioners Title and McBride. So that would be my proposal. Let's start with this opt-in, opt-out. Commissioner Doyle? Am I missing something?
I'm sorry,
I'm missing a
no.
nuance here?
Well, possibly, not missing it.
Nuance and I don't intersect in the same sentence very often.
I'm just trying to think of the smaller communities, because for municipal convenience alone and trying not to overly burden them,
Yep.
because I have heard from some of them that they're suffering from cannabis fatigue a little bit, that opt-out might be easier for them, because then if they don't care, they don't have to do anything.
Right.
But I do think we have to be conscious of the fact that we do need to give them an opportunity to act. And
So that's back to your planning cycle?
yeah, and so I'm wondering if maybe, we put, if opt-out is an option, that we maybe need to put a date on it or something, that no delivery shall occur until.
In these additional communities, not the ones that allow
Correct.
retail and not where the delivery-only licensee is located, but additional communities.
Correct.
Yep.
And so
Do you have a suggestion for what that date might be?
I'd honestly need a minute just to write it out to make sure it made sense, but it would probably be something to the effect of, if a community doesn't fall into those other two,
Right.
no delivery shall occur until, a date certain, June 30th, 2020, or such time as they have taken action on the issue,
Okay.
for lack of a better choice
Okay.
of words.
I would be grateful if you would actually make a motion to the effect of what you just articulated, and then we can vote on it.
Okay, now I have to remember what I just said. Hold on one second. If you just give me a moment, I
Yep.
apologize.
No, I apologize for dumping this on you, but
Okay.
okay. Thank you very much, Commissioner Doyle. I again apologize for dumping this on you, but you seem like
And
So could you read your motion, please? And then, could you read it and then make a formal motion around it? Thank you.
okay. And open to suggestions on this, but no delivery shall occur in a municipality which is not an establishment, which does not host an establishment authorized to deliver under these regulations, a municipality that has authorized retail sale of marijuana, or prior to June 30, 2020, a municipality that has not enacted a bylaw, ordinance, or regulation authorizing delivery within its community. I apologize for all the negatives.
It's okay. We have time to modify the language. I'm really
Yeah.
more interested in the concept.
But, yeah, it's difficult.
Commissioner McBride?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Tuttle.
I'm sorry, could we hear it one more time?
Sure.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doyle, do you mind repeating yourself? I think while Commissioner McBride's reading it, you can read it. Thank you.
So, no delivery shall occur in a municipality which does not host an establishment authorized to deliver under these regulations, a municipality that has authorized retail sale of marijuana, or prior to June 30th, 2020, a municipality that has not enacted a bylaw, ordinance, or regulation authorizing delivery within its community. So, again, the negatives make it confusing, and I apologize, but the idea is to encapsulate the original idea, which was that delivery could occur within the community where the establishment is. The next idea we had, which is you can deliver where retail sales of marijuana are authorized in that particular community. And then this last concept, the give time to opt out. So we will not deliver prior to June 30th, 2020, to give municipalities the opportunity to enact a bylaw, ordinance, or regulation regarding delivery.
Opt out.
Yeah.
So I would appreciate it if we not get into the language and modifying the language as much as discuss and vote on exactly what Commissioner Doyle just said. So do you have any comments or questions? Again, I appreciate the attempt at drafting regulations in real time. I am much more interested in the concept and making sure we're aligned on the concept. So any comments or questions on the concept? Because what I was asking for, Commissioner Doyle, was not a motion on language, but a motion on the concept.
So
Are you comfortable making a motion on the concept?
sure. I move to add a limitation to delivery as I just described.
No, we've got notes on it, so that's fine. Can I have a second, please, on that motion?
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made the motion, seconded by Commissioner Tuttle. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, let the record show that the motion by Commissioner Doyle was approved by the Commission and voted 3 in favor. Commissioners Tuttle, Hoffman, and Doyle voting in favor. Commissioners McBride and Flanagan voting nay. What I'd then like to do is ask for a motion to approve this entire section on delivery operational requirements, subject to the motion that was just approved by the Commission and subject to the language that was suggested by Commissioners Tuttle and McBride with respect to body cameras. Commissioner, yes, General Counsel.
Chairman, thank you. In terms of the language proposed by Commissioners Tuttle and McBride, I just wanted to propose one edit. Rather than...
Is it a ministerial edit or is it conceptual? If it's conceptual, please go ahead.
Rather than drawing in our definition of confidential information, I would suggest that a revision shall be maintained as protected from disclosure to the extent allowed by law. In other words, I would be concerned if the Commission were to inadvertently create a conflict with the public records law. So that phrasing would, I think, preserve the spirit of what the Commissioners are trying to accomplish and also be consistent with the public records law.
Thank you very much, General Counsel. Commissioner Tuttle or McBride? Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Tuttle.
I'm okay with that as long as we make it to the full extent allowed by law.
I think that the phrase that I use is familiar to the public and familiar to the court. I don't think to the full extent is necessary, and I would be concerned that in general in regulation, you don't want to put anything in that you don't need. So I think what I'm proposing does its job, but of course, it's up to the commission to vote on the final language.
Commissioner Tuttle?
It's really important to me that we include the phrase "full extent allowed by law."
Commissioner McBride?
Does it make a difference if we say full extent or extent, the way that it's going to be enforced? I mean, if there are reasons that it can be exempted or reasons that it can't be exempted, that's not going to be necessarily up to us if it's a public records issue, correct? I mean,
Who's your
that's
question
really,
addressed to?
I guess I'm asking general counsel. It's up to us in the first instance, but it's also dictated by law, by the public records law.
Yeah, I mean, the way that this paragraph is currently drafted is that provision applies not only to videos that are being held by potentially the commission, but also videos that are being held by individual licensees. At this moment, I can't anticipate every issue a licensee would identify as reason why they would withhold that video. So in terms of to the full extent required by law, I'm not sure if it makes much of a difference, but there's some complexities here in this paragraph.
Commissioner McBride?
I think I'm going to support Commissioner Title's suggestion that full extent be included at this point in time. And, primarily because I think that if there is a question, that we will deal with that question in the context that it is raised at the time that it comes up. So to the extent that we, as a government entity, have video, then we have a public records law requirement that's going to comply, that we're going to comply with, right? That is going to be, we're subject to. To the extent that that video is held by an entity that is not subject to the public records law, then there may be another body of law that applies there. And I guess I would suggest that, like so many things in the universe that we are operating in, that it may be yet to be determined how that would be treated if there were a challenge.
Okay, thank you. What I would like then, therefore, to do is ask for a motion that would incorporate all the language that is currently in .145, additional operational requirements for delivery of marijuana and marijuana products to consumers, explicitly including the vote that we just took, the motion that was just passed with respect to municipalities and their process for opting out, and specifically including the language suggested by Commissioners McBride and Title, including the last conversation we just had about the full extent of the law. It will also incorporate what I said we defer, which is the section in the definitions with respect to endorsement.
Delivery endorsement.
Delivery endorsement, yes. Yeah. So that
And microbusiness, there's a modification.
and microbusinesses. So that it's a pretty comprehensive. But I think we're aligned on most of these issues, on all these issues. So I would like to ask for a motion incorporating everything I just articulated. Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Let the record show that Commissioner McBride made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Title. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Let the record show the commission approved the motion by a vote of 4 in favor. Commissioners Title, Hoffman, McBride, and Doyle, with Commissioner Flanagan voting nay. Thank you. I believe we can move on from section .145, but let me allow any commissioner to raise any other issues before we do so. Are we set to move on? Great, thank you. Now I'm going to ask for the discretion of the commission. We're not going to take a formal vote on this, but it's 5 of 1. I'm hungry. We need to take a lunch break at some point. My belief is that we will be able to get through the remainder of the adult use regulations relatively quickly. I mean, there's some other issues, but I think we'll be able to get through that relatively quickly. And we also have to do the medical regulations. My belief is we can get done with both of those before the close of business today and perhaps leave us some time to deal with a couple of the other agenda items. So my recommendation, since we're already at 1 o'clock or 5:01 as we take a lunch break at this moment, is 45 minutes sufficient for everybody? So check your watches. By my watch, we will reconvene at 1:40. Thank you.